All right, let's dive into something I think we can all appreciate. Sunsets. You sent in a podcast episode all about sunsets, amazing sunsets around the world.
Mm.
And wow, those pictures were something else. I can tell you love to travel, you love photography,
Yeah.
and finding those golden hour moments, you've definitely got an eye for it. But today, we're going to go past just pretty pictures. We're going to dig into the science behind those fiery colors
Yeah.
and maybe uncover some hidden sunset gems too. Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting. We see sunsets almost every day.
Yeah.
But do we ever really think about what makes all those vibrant colors?
I'll be honest, I'm usually so caught up in the beauty of it all. I don't really think about the science part too much. I know our sources mentioned something about scattering.
Right.
Right.
Scattering. That's the key to it all. It explains why sunsets look the way they do. Think of the Earth's atmosphere as like a giant prism. When sunlight comes into the atmosphere,
Mm-hmm.
it gets scattered every which way by all those tiny particles floating around,
Right.
dust, water droplets, even air molecules themselves.
That makes sense. But why does the sky, actually change color at sunset?
Well, different colors of light have different wavelengths, right?
Hmm.
The shorter wavelengths,
Yeah.
like blue and violet, those scatter more easily, which is why we see a blue sky during the day.
Mm-hmm.
But as the sun gets lower, the light has to travel through way more atmosphere to get to us.
So it's fighting through more of those particles.
Yeah, exactly. So by sunset, most of those shorter wavelengths, they've scattered away, leaving the longer ones behind. That's the oranges, the reds, the pinks.
The good stuff.
Yeah, the stuff we associate with a beautiful sunset.
So the lower the sun, the more scattering and the more intense those colors get.
Exactly. But here's something even more interesting. You know that podcast you sent in? It mentioned how things like air pollution or even volcanic ash
Mm-hmm.
can make sunsets even more vibrant.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. It seems kind of counterintuitive that pollution could actually make something more beautiful.
It does, right?
Yeah.
But it all goes back to those particles. Like volcanic eruptions throw tons of tiny particles into the air,
Okay.
like sulfur dioxide. And these particles, they're just the right size to scatter those longer wavelengths of light even more.
So a truly breathtaking sunset could actually be a sign of a polluted atmosphere.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it?
It is. It's a reminder that even the most beautiful things in nature can be affected by, you know, human activity.
Yeah.
But let's change gears a bit and talk about some of those amazing sunset spots
Okay.
from the podcast. Those pictures from Santorini, Greece were incredible.
Oh, they were stunning.
Those whitewashed buildings, the Aegean Sea, that fiery sunset in the background,
Right.
just magical.
Oh, yeah. Santorini is a classic for a reason. And I remember we were talking about volcanic ash. Well, Santorini is a volcanic island.
Right.
That whole landscape, those cliffs, the caldera,
Yeah.
all from a massive volcanic eruption thousands of years ago. So those iconic Santorini sunsets could be thanks to the island's volcanic past. That's fascinating. It's like history and science coming together
Yeah,
to
exactly.
make those unforgettable colors.
And speaking of unforgettable sunsets, how about a completely different landscape?
Yeah.
The Serengeti National Park in Tanzania.
Okay.
Imagine the vast African savanna bathed in that warm glow of the setting sun. Acacia trees, those long shadows across the grasslands.
I love it.
Maybe a silhouette of a giraffe or a lion even against that fiery sky.
Okay, now you're painting a picture. I can almost feel the warmth of the sun, hear the sounds of the savannah coming alive as the day ends. It's amazing how a sunset can, transport you to a place.
It really is. And the Serengeti, it's special because of that wide open landscape. You get this completely unobstructed view of the horizon, so you see the whole show from the moment the sun dips below the horizon.
You don't get that everywhere.
No.
Not with all the mountains or buildings blocking the view.
Exactly.
But both Santorini and the Serengeti are pretty iconic, pretty famous.
Yeah,
What about those hidden gems the podcast mentioned? The places most people haven't heard of.
right.
The under-the-radar spots
Yeah.
that offer a different kind of sunset experience. I'm always looking for those places off the beaten path.
Oh, absolutely.
You know? Yeah, I love that idea of escaping the crowds and finding a secret sunset spot. It makes me think about what you were saying before, how those wide open landscapes like the Serengeti really let you appreciate the full scope of a sunset.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if maybe those hidden gems are often found in places where nature is really front and center.
You might be right. The podcast actually highlights a spot that fits that description perfectly.
Hmm.
Tulum, Mexico. Imagine watching the sunset over these ancient Mayan ruins on cliffs overlooking the Caribbean Sea.
Okay, that is going straight on my travel bucket list. It's
Yeah.
like the sunset's part of history in a place like that. What's fascinating to me is how different locations can evoke such different emotions during a sunset. You have the romantic, almost mystical vibe of Santorini, the raw, untamed beauty of the Serengeti, and then this blend of history and natural wonder in Tulum.
Yeah, it's incredible how a sunset can totally change depending on its surroundings.
Yeah.
And that's what makes exploring these hidden gems so rewarding.
Yeah.
You're not just chasing a pretty sunset, you're discovering how a place and its history can transform the whole experience.
I couldn't agree more. Were there any other hidden gems that stood out to you from the podcast or our sources? I'm always looking to expand my sunset horizons.
Oh, absolutely. One that comes to mind is the Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia. It's the world's largest salt flat.
Oh, yeah. I've seen pictures. It looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. This endless expanse of white stretching as far as you can see.
Exactly. During the dry season, it becomes this surreal landscape, and the sunsets there are just mind-blowing. When the sun goes down, the sky reflects perfectly off the salt,
Whoa.
creating this illusion of like a sky above and a sky below.
Wow. I can only imagine the photos you could get there. It's like stepping into another world. But as much as I love the idea of traveling to all these amazing places to see sunsets, it makes me think about the sunsets we see right here at home.
Yeah.
I mean, we might not have Mayan ruins or salt flats, but the science behind a sunset is the same everywhere, right?
That's a really good point. We often get so caught up searching for those Instagram-worthy sunsets,
Yeah.
we forget to appreciate the beauty that's right in front of us.
Right.
No matter where you are in the world, as long as you have a clear view of the horizon, you can experience that sunset magic.
And you know what? I bet there are people out there who haven't really taken the time to appreciate a sunset in their own town or city. We get so busy we miss those little moments of wonder.
It is a shame
Mm,
because those everyday sunsets, they can be just as beautiful and meaningful as the ones we travel miles to see.
right.
Remember we were talking about scattering. Every sunset is unique
Right.
because of how the atmosphere is always changing. Clouds, dust, humidity. It's like a different canvas every time.
So even if you're watching the sunset from your own backyard, you're seeing something that's never happened before and will never happen again. That's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It really is. And
I
that's one of the things I love about sunsets. They remind us that even in all the chaos and routine, there's still beauty to be found. It's all about taking a moment to look up and appreciate it.
Beautifully said. I think we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored the science behind those colors, taken a virtual trip to some iconic spots and some hidden gems.
Mhm.
And you've reminded us all that even a simple sunset in our own backyard can be pretty awe-inspiring.
And I think that's a perfect lead in to our final takeaway for our listener today. We've talked a lot about specific places, but the beauty of a sunset is that it's accessible to everyone, everywhere.
Exactly. So much of what we've talked about comes back to that idea of perspective.
Right.
The same scientific phenomenon can create so many different sunset experiences.
And that's why I encourage our listeners to pay attention to the sunsets they see in their own lives, no matter where they are. Notice the little changes in color, how the clouds move, how the landscape is transformed by that golden hour light.
You know, it's funny, we've been talking about traveling to all these amazing places to see sunsets, but you're right. Sometimes the most breathtaking ones are those you just stumble upon right in your own neighborhood.
That is true.
I've had some of my most memorable sunset experiences just walking home from work
Yeah,
or sitting out on my balcony.
absolutely. And those unexpected moments of beauty can be even more impactful, right? They catch you off guard. It's like a reminder that there's wonder all around us if we just take the time to notice.
It's a great point to make, especially for our listener who's clearly so passionate about sunsets.
Yeah.
It's not just about, going to some far off place for that perfect Instagram shot. It's
Yeah.
about appreciating the beauty that's around us every day.
Exactly. Something we haven't really talked about is capturing these sunsets through photography.
Yeah.
You mentioned our listener enjoys photography.
Yeah.
And sunsets are a great subject to experiment with. How the light changes, the colors blending and shifting.
Oh, yeah.
It really lets you play with composition and mood.
That's so true. And for our listener who already has a great eye for capturing those moments,
Yeah.
I think this deep dive could really spark some new ideas for their photography. Maybe they'll be inspired to try different techniques like time lapses or silhouettes
Yeah,
to capture those unique qualities of the sunsets they see.
I love that. It's like taking everything we've talked about, all that knowledge and inspiration, and turning it into something creative.
Right. And who knows, maybe our listener will even share some of their sunset photography with us. We'd love to see their perspective on all this.
Absolutely. We focused on the science, the locations,
Yeah.
but in the end, a sunset is a personal experience.
Uh-huh.
It's how those colors, that light, that moment in time makes you feel.
Mm.
And seeing it through someone else's eyes, through their photography, adds a whole new layer of appreciation.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've given our listener plenty to think about when it comes to sunsets. We've gone from the science of those amazing colors to a virtual tour of those iconic spots and those hidden gems.
Right.
And we even talked about appreciating those everyday sunsets we often take for granted.
Yeah. And hopefully spark some new ideas for our listeners' photography.
Definitely.
But before we go, I have one last thought. We've spent all this time talking about sunsets, but what about...
Sunrises.
Exactly. We've seen the beauty of the setting sun, but sunrises offer a whole different perspective.
Oh,
A
yeah.
new beginning, a fresh start, and the colors can be just as amazing.
They really can be. And it all ties back to what we were saying about perspective and appreciation.
Yeah.
Even though it's the same sun, the same science, sunrises and sunsets give you totally different emotions and experiences.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect note to end on. We've gone deep into the world of sunsets,
We have.
but we've also opened up the door to a whole new area, sunrises.
Well, listeners, it sounds like we have our next deep dive topic all lined up. But until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep looking up.
That's right.
Whether it's a fiery sunset over the ocean or a gentle sunrise in your own backyard, there's always something beautiful to discover up there in the sky.